Right, let's do it then. Let's do it. Okay, we are live. We're off the mark. Good morning, everybody. Sorry, we are a couple of minutes late. Technical problems, because it's not Monday without technical problems, guys, is it? You know, but we're away. And like I say, welcome back. Happy Monday. I hope we've all had a lovely weekend. Just keep one eye on the chat. So as always, guys, this morning I'll have one eye on the chat as we're working our way through. So if you've got any questions, anything that you want to add, by all means do, just stick it in there. Of course, if you're watching this session later on in the week, sort of in your own time, and you've got any questions, anything that you get stuck with, just drop me an email. Yeah. So on YouTube there should be a little description box under the video, like a little drop down arrow with a little description box that gives you all the information on today's session. So in that box you'll find any extra information that you might need. My email address is in there. Of course, like I say, if you've got any questions or you need to get in touch for any reason, then you can find my email in there. There's a link to a survey that we need to do for each session. It won't even take you 30 seconds though, so if you can just at the end of the session click that link, that'll take you to wherever you need to be. That'll take you to the form. If you can just put your answers there, the answers come straight back to us, so you don't need to worry about sort of downloading it, filling it in, saving it, sending it back, or anything like that. So it's nice and straightforward, guys. If you can click that link and fill in that survey at the end of today's session, that would be great. Thank you very much. And any extra stuff, like I say, that you need, there's a copy, a link to the copy of the learner handbook and any sort of extra supplementary sort of info that you might need in there. With that out the way, guys, let's get into it. We've got a brand new course to start, our pre-employability and well-being course. And today we're going to start off, lay the foundation for sort of going forward. And what better place to start than, I guess, really our foundation, the skeleton, and sort of what gives us our shape, that we recognize as being human as well. So let's get into it, guys. Let's get into it. So as always, yeah, I'll just keep one eye on me, one eye on the chat, like on my phone, and like I say, if you've got any questions, just pop them in there. Right, guys, right. Tammy, I've just got your email through. Let me know if you still need me to resend the link, and I'll try and do that quickly. If you need that, send to a different email. Yeah, let me know, and I'll try and get that done quick for you. Okay then, guys. Okay, cool. So our skeleton has got 4 main functions really, and those are movement, support and shape, protection, and blood production. So our skeleton really has got these 4 main jobs, and there's not I can think of any bones that do all of these 4 jobs. So some jobs, some bones might only do one of these, some might do a mixture of a couple, you know, different bones might do a mixture of a different couple as well. So there's lots of different sort of combinations we can get within the body as well. But really, it's really easy to sort of overlook what the skeleton does. I think there's a lot of focus these days on, you know, sort of course, aesthetics and visual appearance, and it's only gone that way even more since social media has been such a big thing. And again, you know, thinking about our sort of external health and the health that we sort of project to other people. But our skeleton is, like I say, responsible for a lot of our movement, protecting some of our major organs as well. So we've got to make sure that we look after our skeleton as well, and making sure that we're sort of being kind to it, treating it right, helping it last as long as possible. And like I say, that's not quite as easy as, you know, let's go and do let's go to the gym or whatever, let's change our food around a little bit and try and lose a little bit of weight or whatever it might be. We're not thinking about like the visual side of things so much. We're thinking about these really sort of basic sort of functions that the skeleton does to help keep us alive and make us sort of what we are. Right, guys, cool. So we've got a little exercise to do first then, before we go any further. And it's just really to sort of test where our knowledge is on the skeleton in coming into today's session. So what we're going to be doing, we've got, and see if I can make this a little bit bigger for you. There we go, cool. So we are trying to label this diagram of the skeleton. Yeah, so to give us a little bit of a hand, what we've got is obviously a little dash for each letter, so we can figure out how many letters is there or should be there. And of course, we've actually got one or two of them pre-filled in some of the words as well. So even if we're not entirely sure or 100% certain, this bone is this bone is that, we can maybe work it out, maybe with a little bit of a process of elimination as well. Okay, Tammy, I'm glad you managed to get sorted. Nice one, cool. Right, guys, so yeah, what we're going to do, we're going to break it down and try and work our way through and find out where these words fit on the diagram of the skeleton that we've got. So for the first one, how many dashes have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The second letter being R. Yeah, so if we look for a word where the second letters are, there is only one. And then just to double check, it was 7 letters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There we go. Cool. So the skull, proper scientific name for the skull is the cranium. And you might find that you've come across some of these words before. Some of them might be totally new to you as well. You know, especially with them being more scientific names, chances of you actually coming across them in sort of everyday conversations are quite slim. So yeah, you might have heard some of these sort of in passing. You might be familiar with what they are, where they are in the body. Some of them not so much as well, guys. So let's try and see if we can break them down and fill in as many of these as we can. So we'll just spend a couple of minutes or so on this, and then I will go through and I'll break them down and give you the answers before we spin on to the next slide. So we'll get a better look at all of these bones on the next couple of slides, actually, and start to look at them sort of individually and in depth a little bit more. But the skeleton in itself, like I say, is it's kind of one of those where we're born with a lot more bones than we actually have as an adult. It's really interesting, actually. What we have when we're born, we have a lot more sort of what we might call sort of soft tissue, and then as we get older, the body and the bones will start to sort of solidify and get stronger, get firmer, and some of them actually fuse together. And you'll see this when we get a look at the skull or the cranium in a couple of minutes. You can see the skull or the cranium is actually like separate plates that obviously meet and come together almost like a jigsaw. And as we get older, those fuse together, you know, from birth. Yeah, as we start to go through sort of being a toddler and getting a little bit older, those fuse. And that's the reason why, if you've ever heard like don't touch the baby's soft spot and stuff like that, that's why it is, because sometimes the skull isn't fully developed and there's sometimes sort of holes maybe where the plates haven't fully fused together yet. So yeah, we end up with 206 bones as adults, but yeah, when we're born, we actually have a lot more. Okay, guys, so another couple of minutes, see if we can get a few more of those, and then, like I say, we'll have a look and we can even discuss maybe the different roles that each bone does individually, because like I say, we've got those 4 main functions that the skeleton does. And like I say, we'll have a look and figure out which bones actually do what. Another little fun, I say fun, it depends who you ask, probably not the astronauts. So when astronauts go up into space, because they aren't in sort of like a gravity environment where they're experiencing gravity and they're getting that sort of pull and that pressure on their system, that gravity actually helps with our bone density, which is why a really handy way to sort of start to treat and deal with early onset osteoporosis, or just prevent osteoporosis in the first place, is to do some sort of resistance training, you know, get some weights. And like I say, it forces your bones to get stronger, believe it or not. And when astronauts are in space, if they don't have that, like I say, they're not getting that gravity, they're not getting that resistance on their bones, their bones actually become a lot more brittle in space, which is why, again, really interesting. It costs something ridiculous like £1 million to send 1 pound of weight into space, but they've actually sent fully working weight machines up there because the astronauts actually need to be able to work out against some resistance. They need to be able to use the weight machines and do weight training and stuff like that. So I find that really fascinating that there's so much effort goes into making a sort of like a rocket as light as possible, and then they'll load it up with weights. But like I say, we're human beings, we need it, and we need to, like I say, think about our bones and take care of them just the same as we would with our muscles, just the same as we brush our teeth every day, you know. So yeah, we've got to make sure that we're taking care of it. Right, guys. Okay. So let's break these down then, and see how many we got. So, first one was cranium. We had the skull. Yeah. Next one, is pointing at the collarbone. If you see there, yeah. So it's pointing at the collarbone. So almost like that bony one that might stick out across the front, coming over to your shoulder. And the proper name for that one is the clavicle. So this one here. So clavicle, the clavicle is the proper name for the collarbone. Okay then. Okay. So next one is the big long bone in the upper arm. And same again, anybody who's watching along, if you do want to shout any of the answers out, if you're sure you want to have a guess, by all means do, as I'm working my way through. So this long one in the upper arm is the humerus, guys. If you've ever heard the name funny bone, if you've ever banged your funny bone, you'll agree with me. I'm sure that it's no fun at all. Unless somebody else bangs their funny bone, in which case it is hilarious. But yeah, it's the humerus, guys, and that's where the name funny bone actually comes from. It's the humerus, the big long bone in the upper arm. Okay, then moving on, and we're looking at part of the hand, not the fingers, but we're looking at sort of in here, sort of in the hand itself, in the palm of your hand, or the bones that make up that part of your hand anyway. And what we call those are carpals. So you might have heard the term carpal tunnel syndrome before, and that is like a painful condition involving like the wrist and the hands area as well. So that's how I remember that, carpals in the hands. Like I say, so we've got carpals in the hand, where your sort of fingers start to branch off into individual fingers. Once you get to the point where they are individual fingers, they are called phalanges. Yeah, we don't need to worry about that one too much this morning, and we will come across that one again. But yeah, a phalange is part of the finger. It's not part of an aeroplane, for you French fans out there. And the phalange is part of your hands, so and your toes actually, but we'll get to that one as well. So yeah, carpals in the hands, guys, carpals in the hands, and like I say, carpal tunnel syndrome, all to do with the hands. Tend to find that one makes it easier to remember than some. Okay, next one then, and if we look really carefully, we can see it's pointing through the rib cage to the shoulder blade on the back. So the shoulder blade obviously moves around quite a lot, should be nice and loose to help your shoulders move. And the shoulder blade, the real name for it, or the scientific name, is the scapula. Yeah, so this one right here, scapula is the proper name for the shoulder blades. Obviously we have one either side, and because we've got a skeleton here, we can actually see it from the front. So yeah, that was the scapula, that one. Okay then, okay, and next one we've got, we follow the arrow, it's pointing at this, pointing at the breastplate really. The breastplate that the ribs will come round and hug onto at the front. The bony sort of plate, you can feel if you sort of tap or press there. If you've seen like anything like Pulp Fiction, where he's got to give her the adrenaline shot, and he says we've got to get through this in particular bone. That's the bone that they're trying to get through, the breastplate. It's a dense, solid bit of bone, and like I say, we'll understand why when we start to look at what jobs the individual bones actually do. So that was that's the sternum. The breastplate is actually called the sternum. Again, might be one that you've come across before. Absolutely no worries if not. Okay then, so the next one looks as though it's pointing almost to sort of like the lower back area, although so it is pointing to the spine, but of course the spine runs kind of from our hips and our pelvis up to the base of our skull. So the spine isn't one individual bone. The spine is lots of separate bones stacked on top of each other with sort of like cushioning pads in between, which is why we can sort of bend our back as much as we can. You know, we can sort of twist, we can bend forward, we can bend backwards. If our back was all like one solid bone, we wouldn't be able to move very far at all. And again, leans into the many different jobs that the skeleton actually does, and why it's important. So yeah, this one was the spine. I'd be surprised if that's one that you haven't come across before. But like I say, absolutely no problem if not. Okay, so the last one that we've got on the left-hand side, similar to how we have carpals in our hands, in our feet, we have tarsals. So we have carpals in our hands and tarsals in our feet in the same place. And again, the way that I remember that, and if there's any football fans out there, you know, it's I wouldn't say a common injury, but it's certainly not as it's certainly not a rare one either. You know, a broken metatarsal. So we have tarsals and metatarsals, just like in our hands we have carpals and metacarpals as well, as they get a little bit smaller. So we have tarsals in our feet, and the way that I remember, T for toe, yeah, T, tarsals is in your feet, C, carpals are in your hands, carpal tunnel syndrome, yeah. So yeah, tarsals in our feet, and like I say, it's ruined probably, you could say, a few footballers' careers, breaking just one of these tiny little bones in your foot. I believe Wayne Rooney missed the start of a World Cup or a Euros or something when he did his. But yeah, little tiny bone in your foot that helps, like I say, same with your hands. It gives us a lot of the dexterity and a lot of the movement that we have, especially in our hands, to be able to grip things and do all the stuff that we do with them. Okay then, guys, coming over to the right hand side then, what we can see, we have got two bones in the upper forearm, yeah, or in the forearm itself, in the lower arm, sorry, I should say. So we've got a trying to think which way his hand is. That looks like his thumb. So we've got one bone that comes down from the thumb. We've got another bone that comes down from the little finger. Yeah, so we've got two bones. One comes down this side, one comes down the other side, and that will stay the same even if you rotate your arm. Yeah, so that's a bit of a strange one actually, because of course the bones are anchored down there as well as up there, but when you cross your arm over, you can sort of feel and sort of visualize how those bones would then twist around each other as your arm sort of rotates. So yeah, we've got two bones. We've got one coming down from the little finger, and we've got one coming down from the thumb. And again, the way that I remember this one, guys, the two bones in the forearm are the radius and the ulna. Yeah, so those two words there. So that's step one, just remember the name of the two of them. Yeah, so we've got the radius and we've got the ulna. So what I tend, or the way that I remember this one is ulna is of course the shorter or the littler word of the two. And I remember the little word is the bone that comes from the little finger. Yeah, so ulna comes from the little finger down this side of your arm, and the radius comes down from your thumb. Yeah, and remember that'll stay the same no matter which way you have your wrist facing. Yeah, ulna from the little finger, radius from the thumb. Okay then, guys. So next one down we can see is two words, two separate words. There is only one answer that was two separate words, and that is the rib cage. If we didn't get that by other means, the rib cage, of course, we can see here. Sort of it starts on your spine, it starts on your back, and like I say, on those individual bones of your spine, and they sort of wrap around your torso, wrap around sort of like your core, your internal organs, your heart, your lungs, and some of them come around the front and reconnect to your sternum, like we mentioned earlier. We can see here they come from the back, round the front. They're like fully enclosed, yeah. But then further down the rib cage, we actually have these ones that start at the back, but don't quite come all the way around to connect onto the front. And what we call those are called floating ribs, and those are much easier to crack or bruise. So you know, you tend to find if you are going to damage a rib, it will be one of those, just because they haven't got as much support. But because they haven't got as much or haven't got as much protection, the ribs don't come all the way around. That actually allows us a lot more movement as well. The rib cage is sort of a lot more sturdy at the top where your heart and your lungs are. Further down, there's of course less bone, and it gives us a lot more movement, and frees up sort of like your lower back area really, and all the movement that comes from there. Right then, right. Oh, one thing while I'm on about the ribs. Morning, Wib, nice to have you in, buddy. Hope you're doing well, mate. Hope we've had a good weekend. We're just having a little bit of a look at the skeleton this morning, the different jobs that it does, and the individual names of the bones as well. So if you've done this one before, Wib, see if there's any that you can remember. Let's test that memory. Yeah, so while I was just on about the ribs there, an interesting one with the ribs, because when we look at the ribs, we always see them on like a skeleton where there's no muscle. But what we actually have, we have muscle in between our ribs that stretches as we breathe in, and the rib cage expands with our lungs, and of course they contract again as we breathe out, and our lungs empty, and they don't need to take quite as much space. So again, maybe you've hurt your ribs even just through coughing. I've been in a position before where I've coughed that much, where I've convinced myself that I've cracked a rib or something like that, when really it's just the muscle that's between the ribs that you've maybe strained or bruised or whatever, guys. So yeah, like I say, not to worry about too much, but I think it is really easy to lose sight of the fact that, especially with the ribs, there's always muscle around them, and there's other stuff going on as well. We don't just have this sort of see-through rib cage floating around in our system that you could just peek through if we didn't have skin. Like there's a lot more of the muscle in there as well. Okay then, guys, so we've got our last 3 or 4. This one here points to the where our hips are, the bone that our hip joint sort of originates at, and that is the pelvis. That's the pelvis, guys. It's got like our spine incorporated into the bottom of it, our coccyx, our tailbone. those lower parts of the spine being more fused together and a lot more solid, gives our pelvis a lot more support as well, which gives us a lot more support. Again, coming back to the different jobs that the skeleton actually does. So the pelvis, essentially, guys, everything that needs to go from your upper body to your lower body and vice versa goes through your pelvis. Absolutely every single signal that your body sends to your lower body to, you know, move your legs, wiggle your toes, straighten your legs out, whatever it might be, have a bit of a stretch, it all goes down your spine and it all goes through your pelvis, you know. So it's a really important sort of junction in the body, really. Okay then, guys, so the big bone in the upper leg, so from the knee up to the hip joint, what do we think that one's called? So we've only got a few, we should only have a few words left now. So we've done all of these. I think the only ones left are probably tibia and fibia, actually. So yeah, so the top one, the last one left, is femur. Yeah, so the femur is the big bone in your upper leg. It is the biggest single bone in the body. It's supposedly very hard to break and very, very painful to break. But yeah, that is the big bone in the upper leg is the femur. And then, like I just sort of mentioned, we've got again 2 bones in the sort of lower leg as well, just like we have 2 bones in the upper arm. And again, when you look at how similar the hands and feet are to how they're made up, carpals, tarsals, metacarpals, metatarsals, it's a lot of evidence to me that we probably did used to walk on all fours. You know, our arms and our legs, our limbs are designed so similarly. It's amazing, really, when you look at all these different other shapes of bones and very unique, very distinctive sort of shapes and jobs in our limbs. They're very similar. So again, from our knee down, just like in our arm from our elbow down, we have 2 separate bones. The one at the front, the bigger of the 2, is the tibia. That's your shin bone. And then sort of offset and at the back, we've got this little one that is the fibula. Yeah, so we've got the fibula and tibia in the lower leg. Sorry, whip through us off there. I've seen that comment, Elvis the pelvis. Yeah, I always have to stop myself. I always have to catch myself. I can't even remember where that was from. But yeah, those are the proper scientific names for all the bones in the body, or the major bones in the body. Anyway, like I say, we as adults we have 206. We don't need to know the names of all of them, but it is handy to know the names of some of the major ones, some of the bigger ones, and start to get a bit of an understanding of the jobs that they're doing individually in the body as well. So what we'll do now, we'll go through nice and slow. We'll take a look at all the bones individually, and hopefully you guys will be able to have a little bit of a guess at what jobs the that in particular bone does. So to start us off, we'll start with the head, guys. We'll start at the top. We'll do top to toe, so they say. So yeah, to start us off, we've got the cranium. So as we'd mentioned earlier on, this picture on the left doesn't give you a great idea of the plate thing that I was on about earlier on, but the one on the right does a little bit more. So you can see that there's like lines on the skull, and those are those individual plates that solidify over time and help the skull get its shape and its strength as well. So those aren't actually fused together necessarily at birth. Okay, cool. So probably worth mentioning as well, as it's really it's easy to overlook, when it comes to the skull or the cranium, it doesn't include the jaw. The jaw is actually its own bone called the mandible. Again, it might be a word that you've come across, and I'm pretty sure that they use that to describe essentially the same anatomy on like bugs and stuff like that, you know, like in other wildlife as well. So we've got, yeah, a mandible is our jaw that helps us. What do you think it does? What do you think these 2 bones do, guys? We've got the cranium and we've got the mandible. Could we have a guess what any of those bones do? What are the functions of them? What's the skull doing, do we think? Again, if we come back to those four main functions of the skeleton, Skull, what do we think the skull's doing? Is the skull helping us move? Is it giving us support and shape? Is it protection? Or is it blood production? What do we think? What do we think? So the skull, guys, the skull is actually its main job is protection, really. If you think we've got a lot of stuff in our head that of course helps us survive, not only our brain but our eyeballs as well, which are of course really important for sight and being able to see from a survival point of view. Look out for other predators and find prey ourselves so we can eat and find food ourselves. So our eyes they're a key organ as well. And like I say, the skull's main job really is to protect those, namely the eyes and the brain. So yeah, the skull, the cranium is mainly protective, but then the mandible not so much, because the mandible, if we just wanted protection, the mandible could be attached to the skull. It wouldn't need to be its own separate bone. But what do we need our jaws to be able to do? Excellent shout, Tammy. Yeah, cranium's protecting the brain. Absolutely bang on. When it comes to the jaw, we need our jaw to be able to move so we can chew and give ourselves food and sustenance and take care of ourselves as well. And like I say, keep ourselves with enough energy. So our mandible helps quite a lot with movement in the way that it fits into the skull, and of course the way that it allows our jaw to open and close, of course, with the help of muscle. No bones move by themselves. With the help of muscle, to be able to chew. So although the skull is there for protection, the mandible is its own, and the jaw is its own separate bone, and that is there for movement, to help us, like I say, to help us eat, talk, communicate. Okay, so we can get a bit of a better look at the spine here, because like I mentioned, it's not just one bone. It's actually a lot of separate bones, and we've got different areas in the spine as well. So maybe you've heard the term lumbar puncture. It gets its name because it comes from the lumbar section of the spine, which is at the bottom, yeah, which we'll get to. Or maybe you've heard of like the thoracic spine, or maybe you've been for an x-ray or a scan or something, and you've been given like, you look at the results, and I mean, granted, it never makes any sense. It doesn't make any sense to me when I look at what the doctor's written, but every now and then, like, you might see something like back pain originating from T3, and you're like, what's T3? It'll be T, thoracic, and it'll be the third, what we call vertebrae down. Yeah. So that's all those mean, guys. So yeah, we've got our three different sections of the spine. So what we've actually got, we've got cervical spine at the top, and these are the top 7 vertebrae, and that's kind of almost collarbone level up to base of your skull. It's the first 7 vertebrae that you've got. Remember those, each individual bits of bone, like these here, separate. So we've got the cervical vertebrae, which is 7 vertebrae. Then we've got the thoracic, which is 12. Yeah, and that will cover sort of everything from top of rib cage to bottom of rib cage. Then we've got our lower back, which, like I mentioned, is the lumbar spine, which is 5 vertebrae. And then we are down into the sacrum, which is 5 fused together, and the coccyx, which is 4 fused together. So what we've actually got is this last 9 here, which are fused together, which, like I say, gives us a lot more support, a lot more solidarity, and gives our pelvis a lot more support as well. So when it comes to the spine, the way that I remember those individual numbers, I think about meal times. I don't know whether it's just because I love my food too much, but if you think about 7 vertebrae, so 7 o'clock breakfast, 12 vertebrae in the next part, 12 o'clock dinner, and then of course there was 5 in the bottom, so 5 o'clock tea time. So 7, 12, and 5, those are as good a meal times as any others. And then of course we've got the 9 in the sacrum and the coccyx at the bottom as well, which, like I say, we can see a lot better on the right hand side here, and we can see that they are fuse together. They don't move very much. Maybe if you've ever sat down too hard or too fast, and you felt like you've sort of bruised your bum or bruised something really low at the bottom of your back, that'll be what it is. Your tailbone, your coccyx. So now we can get a bit of more of an understanding where the, like I say, the pelvis gets its shape from. We can see how it sort of accommodates the bottom part of the spine quite nicely into the pelvis. And then we've got these two sort of, we call them ball and socket joints, because the hip has got like, the femur has got like a ball shape on the top of it, and it just sits nicely into the cavity on the hip, which allows our hips to move at, the loads of different angles that they do. Our elbow will just bend that way. It's a hinge joint. Whereas our hips and our shoulders, again, our limbs, ball and socket joint, a lot more room of movement. I can do that if I want. I can do that if I want. Your shoulders and your hips have so much more movement than most of your other joints because of the way that the bones fit together, which is again why we need to strengthen the muscles around those joints as well. Okay then, spinning on. So actually, first of all, before we do spin on, what do we think is the jobs of these bones then? So we mentioned before that the spine actually has a lot of nerves running through it to get signals down to your lower body and obviously upper body as well. Really, it all travels down your spine, from your brain down your spine, and it is it's through your nervous system. So the spine actually gives you a little bit of protection, in the same sense that, if you were running like electrical cabling through something, you might put it in like a duct or like a plastic sheath or something like that. It protects the actual sort of wire itself, in this case our nervous system and our nerves, and it like I say, it gives you a lot more protection against sort of impact onto those nerves and stuff like that. So so your lower back gives us a little bit of protection, and your spine in itself, but the main thing that the spine does really is movement. Like I say, it's set up in these individual vertebrae that will pivot on top of each other. I can look left and right if I want to. I can look up and down. I can arch my back. I can lean forward. And it all comes from the spine, or a lot of it comes from the spine anyway. And what we can actually see, and like I mentioned with the rib cage earlier on, because these vertebrae have the rib cage connected on the front, if not front, on the back, if not front and back, a lot of our movement in our back actually comes from the lower back. So this area here, we can see there's a lot more space around it in terms of bones that would restrict our movement. So yeah, our lower back moves a lot more. So I can move side to side. I'm still sat down. I've just got that movement in my lower back. That's where it's coming from, which is why a lot of pain that we get in our back tends to be in our lower back, because it's taken over so much of the movement on a day-to-day basis as well. So again, want to make sure that those lower back muscles are nice and strong. When we're talking about core training, our lower back counts exactly the same. Our pelvis, so our pelvis, probably I would say our pelvis gives us a maybe a little bit of protection, for stuff like your bladder, potentially sort of sexual and reproductive organs as well. Maybe get a little bit of protection there. Support, of course, like I say, from not personal experience, but I actually know somebody who has experienced this. If you were to crack your pelvis there is no support anymore, because you've got this part. One side's going to try and go one way with its own femur and your own leg attached, and the other side's going to try and go the other way with the other leg attached, and there's no way you are standing up if this is broken or cracked. So our pelvis is giving us a lot of support, in our ability to keep our balance, keep our sort of center of mass underneath us, and like I say, keep ourselves balanced. No worries, Wib, if you've got to jump off, mate. I may well catch you in the drop-ins on Friday this week, if I don't see you on any of the other courses beforehand. We're back on Wednesday afternoon, with a part of our level 1 course as well, but by all means jump on, have a little bit of a crack, bit of a catch up, and like I say, if you've done it before, you might actually be able to test that memory a little bit. But yeah, have a good day, mate. Take it easy. I'll catch you when I catch you. Okay then, guys, cool. So yeah, let's keep it rolling. So the rib cage, we mentioned quite a lot about the rib cage giving us a little bit of sort of shape in like I say, that sort of torso shape that we've got, that we recognize as sort of being human. It comes from partially from the rib cage as well, but the main job for the ribs, in fact, what do you guys think? What do you guys think is the main job for the ribs? I'm going to do the sternum. So the sternum in a very similar sort of way to the rib cage. Actually, they do a lot of the same job, but in different ways. In different ways due to their shape. And again, they're very unique shapes. You know, there's no other bones in the body that looks like ribs. There's no other bones in the body that look like the breastbone or the sternum. But like I say, they do, although they look different, they do essentially do the same job. So for the rib cage and the sternum, really, you could say, is the main job is protection. The main job is protection for your heart and your lungs, two of the most important organs that we've got. Yeah, and like I say, like I mentioned earlier on, our rib cage is fully enclosed at the top. That is where our heart and our lungs are. Of course, if that was the case all over the body, we wouldn't be able to move. So lower down, as we get to sort of less vital organs, I guess you could say, they don't quite come round and latch on at the front again. But they're still ribs there, you know. We are still getting some protection for those organs, particularly from the sides and from behind, where again, if we were going to be attacked, would much more likely from a survival point of view be attacked from the front or the back. Yeah, spot on, Tammy, exactly like you say. It protects your heart and your lungs, two organs that we wouldn't be able to live without. So yeah, very, very important bones as well. Little bit of trivia or little extra question, bonus point. If anybody can tell us what we get from our foods, or what we need to look for in our food, that can help strengthen our bones, especially as we're getting older and developing from childhood. What do we think? What is it that we need from our food to help strengthen our bones? One for you to think about while we're finishing these up. So for the skeleton, again, we've got the clavicle, like I mentioned, is the proper name for the collarbone. And we've got the scapula on the back, which is the proper name for the shoulder blade. And these two work almost kind of opposite each other. You know, if you want to bring your shoulders forward, your clavicle will sort of change forward and sort of readjust your shoulders, but your shoulder blades will actually, and you might be able to feel it if you just try rounding your shoulders over. You can feel your shoulder blades come further apart as they get almost pulled round your body, sort of thing, as they move to create that space. And they're massively important for our, like I say, our shape. In that, you know, the collarbone sets off our shoulders, and it gives us our shape, and somewhere for our shoulders to sort of start, really, I guess, and our arms and our upper limbs somewhere to start. And then, like I say, our scapula is massively important for movement as well. In, you know, if you raise your shoulders, like if you shrug, that's your scapula's moved, and so's your collarbone as well. So anything really that is movement around the shoulder joint is going to need movement from the collarbone and the shoulder blade as well. Not so much like your head. You can move your head side to side and you don't have any of that movement going on. As soon as you go to like pull your shoulders back and push your chest out and think about the posture, that is again your shoulder blades pulling back, or rounding forward, if you're arching your back that way instead. And so we get a lot of movement from these two muscles, guys. So yeah, massively important for movement, these ones, guys. Tammy's excellent, Tammy. Yeah, we need our vitamins and our minerals from our foods to make sure that we're healthy, make sure that we're not just eating empty calories, making sure we're giving our body what it needs. Is there any particular mineral that you can think of that we might need that'll give us nice strong bones? Okay, guys, so moving on to some of the more, it sounds daft to say, but some of the more bony looking bones, I guess. You know, like if you were to draw a dog with a bone, you wouldn't draw a rib, you wouldn't draw the skull. You'd be much more likely to draw something like this, wouldn't you? A long bit with knobbly bits at either end. So we've got the humerus, like I say, top of the arm. It helps us move. Obviously, it is part of our arm. The main job really that one does, though, believe it or not, is blood cell production. We have bone marrow, and within that bone marrow, our body is producing new blood and new blood cells as well, which are important for carrying oxygen, fighting off diseases that potentially get in our body and germs. So yeah, that I always remember that one surprising me when I was studying the skeleton and doing my PT course. I remember obviously like, yeah, protection makes sense, look after the important organs, movement makes sense, of course, shape makes sense. And then, yeah, like our bones are actually partially responsible for producing blood cells, which, you know, links in, like I say, with our immune system a lot more and stuff like that. So it's not just, you know, a collection of old bones that slowly hurt more and more and get a bit more achy as we get older. You know, even these bones, they're all doing their own job. And like I say, they're all different jobs as well. Bang on, Tammy, as well. Excellent. Yeah, spot on. It is, of course, calcium that we need from our foods, and mainly, of course, dairy, and making sure that especially for kids and growing adults and stuff like that, and young adults, making sure that we're getting plenty of calcium can help strengthen our bones up as well. Okay then, guys, cool. So ulna and radius in the lower arm, like we mentioned earlier on. The ulna is the bone that comes down from the little finger, and the radius comes down from the thumb. What we've got there, guys, two bones, really helpful for movement, believe it or not. Like I sort of mentioned earlier on, those two bones give us a lot of movement in our wrist and in our forearm as well, you know, to be able to go palms down, go palms up, because like I mentioned, the elbow joint is just a hinge. The elbow joint will only do that. So if this was only one bone, we wouldn't be able to rotate at all. That rotation only comes from those bones sort of folding over each other as you twist. So yeah, we get a lot of movement from those two bones. Because like I say, if that was just one bone in the elbow, and the elbow was set up the same way, we wouldn't have much movement in our sort of in our not our hands, but in our forearm, really, I guess. Although that's probably not an area that you think of yourself having much movement in, because it's stuff that we take for granted. We do it probably all day, every day, you know, without thinking about it. But yeah, that's where that movement actually comes from, being able to go palms up to palms down. Try it. Anchor your elbow on something. Get a hold of your arm, and then just go palm up to palm down, and you can feel them. You can probably feel them moving. Right then, right. Next one. So we're moving down into the lower body now. So into the legs, the lower limbs. So again, exactly like the arms, they're set up very similar. We have got a long bone, the femur, which will be producing those blood cells. So we've got blood cell production going on in the femur. Of course, it's helping you move. They are our legs, you know, at the end of the day, which are responsible for a lot of movement. And then we've got, again, coming into the lower limb, we've got a hinge joint, which is the knee, which again, the knee should only move in a hinge joint fashion, the same as the elbow, open or close, same as a door, like I say, open or close. We've got a hinge joint, and then in the lower limb, we've got two bones again. Like I say, very similar to the arms. So we've got again, a little bit of movement coming from the tib and the fib as well, giving us a lot of movement in our ankle again, and a little bit of blood cell production as well. Again, as well as movement. We're not really getting any shape from those bones. We're not really getting any support from those bones, bar the fact that, I mean, a little bit of support because of course we standing on them all day long, but I guess all of our bones are sort of working against gravity all day, every day. And then its own individual bone is the kneecap, which is a lot of protection actually. So the way that the knee meets, the way that the femur meets the tibia, allows for movement. It allows us to bend our knee, but the kneecap doesn't help with that movement at all. Our knee would still bend the same way whether we had a kneecap or not. And what the kneecap does, the kneecap gives us a lot of protection, because again, if we were to say if you were to bend your knee and open that joint up and you didn't have a kneecap, you think about how exposed, like, again, your nerves would be. And if you went and kneel down and you didn't have any kneecap, you would just be kneeling on, like, straight on the nerves, and it would be absolute agony. So we do get a little bit of protection from the kneecap. Although the knee's main job is to move, the kneecap is its own separate bone that is mainly responsible for a little bit of protection. Okay then, guys, so that's our last one that we've got to look at, I think, for this, kind of the same one, because that's the kneecap again. Hands in the, yeah, very similar. So yeah, the last one that we've got to do will really just hopefully sort of drive home that point of our hands and our feet being very similar as well. We can see that in our hands, we've got, like we said, carpals at the base of the hand. Then we've got metacarpals, yeah, these yellow ones as we as the fingers start to branch out, although they're still sort of enclosed within your palm. Then we've got different names of phalanges based on whether, like, it's that part of your finger, that part, or that part. Don't worry about that. Just remember phalanges as best you can. So we've got carpals, metacarpals, phalanges in our fingers, yeah, not just our fingertips, but all of our fingers. And then, yeah, the feet are very similar again. We've got our ankle joint, same as we've got a wrist. Then we've got our tarsals, again, same as we've got carpals right at the base. Then we've got metatarsals as they begin to become their own sort of entity, their own individual toe in this case. And then again, once you get to your toes, they are phalanges again. So it doesn't matter whether it's the hands or the feet. The digits themselves are made out of phalanges. They have either tarsals or carpals at the base, and then the further down you get, they become either metacarpals or metatarsals. So hopefully that makes what I said earlier make a little bit more sense, you know, as to sort of where everything is in our hands and our feet, and you know, just what the differences is. Yeah, we mentioned same again. Yeah, we've got those 3 different types of phalanges. So we've got proximal, intermediate, and distal. Yeah. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about that too much. If you want to try and remember them, the way that I would do it: proximal, proximity, close by; intermediate, somewhere in the middle; and then distal, distance, further away from you. Is the way that you could do that. And then of course we talked about the kneecap on the last slide. Okay then, guys. Okay, so we've got a little quiz to do. Just test that knowledge. See how we're getting on this morning. So we have got 14 questions, and we're going to try and name the scientific name for each of these. Yeah, like I say, it's not about getting them all right. We don't need to worry about how many we get right. It's just a case of saying where we are, what are we finding a little bit easier to remember. And you know, especially with stuff like this, guys, it's bones, it's long names that we've never heard of before. It can give us an idea of the areas that we might, you know, want to come back and revisit, or just spend a little bit more time on, and just make sure that we sort of taking everything on board, I guess, really. So we've got, like I say, 14 questions. grab yourself a pen and paper, type the answers on your phone if you want, if you're a little bit quicker at that. I know I'm definitely not. So we've got the proper, we need the proper name for the hip bone, the skull, the shoulder blade, the kneecap, the thing that protects your heart and lungs, the bone in your forearm above the thumb, long bone at the top of the arm, this one over here, large lower leg bone at the front, so your shin, what's the proper name for your shin, your collarbone, the smaller lower leg bone, so the one at the back that isn't your shin, toes and fingers, the long bone at the top of the leg, so your thigh bone, the breastbone, and the last one is the bone in the forearm above your little finger. So yeah, we've got from the thumb and the little finger in there as well. Like I say, if you want to put any answers in the chat, by all means do. If you'd rather just sort of keep them to yourself, write them down, then like I say, just mark them through as we go through the answers, and yeah, say how we got on. And then we're going to move on and have a little look at the way that a little look at different muscles in the body, different muscles that we've got, and how they work with our bones, how they work together. But we'll spend a few minutes on this first. So yeah, how many of these can we get down, guys? We'll give it a few minutes, and then if I start working through them before you're ready for the answers, if you're watching live or watching later on, doesn't matter too much. You can just pause it and then just press play afterwards and just get caught up that way. So yeah, a couple of minutes on this one, guys, and then we'll spin on. Okay, so I've had to I had to double check just to make sure, but children are born with more than 270 bones, which like I say, ends up being 206 when we're adults. So as we grow, we go through the process of losing nigh on 60 odd bones, and like I say, that'll be plates fusing together, bones fusing together, all of that as well, which is quite fascinating itself, really. Okay then, okay, cool. So let's start to break these down a little bit. Tammy, how are you getting on? Do you want a little bit more time? Do you want a little bit more time, or do you want me to start working through these nice and slow? How are we going to do it? Let's see, I don't mind spending another couple of minutes. And if there's anything you've got already, and then of course, like a few answers that you're not sure of, maybe try a little bit of process of elimination. What bones are left? You know, what names can you think of that might be left over? Okay then, guys, cool. So we'll start breaking this down a little bit then. So the proper name for the hip bone was the pelvis. Yeah, it was the pelvis, as Wib said, Elvis. The pelvis is the proper name for the hip bone. The skull, like we'd said earlier on, and like Tammy mentioned when she said it was protecting the brain, the skull is called it's the cranium. Number 3, the shoulder blade was or is the scapula. The kneecap. The kneecap is the patella. Yeah, the proper scientific name for the kneecap is the patella. What protects our heart and lungs is the rib cage. Yeah, protects our heart and lungs. It's our ribs. The bone in the forearm above the thumb. So remember, so we had radius and ulna. Ulna, there's a little word, comes from the little finger, so it must be radius from the thumb. Yeah, so the bone in your forearm above your thumb, if you're standing with your hands by your side, obviously, will be the radius. Yeah, radius from the thumb. The long bone. Cool. The long bone at the top of the arm is the humerus. Like we said, the funny bone. That's the long bone at the top of the arm. The large lower leg bone at the front, being the shin, was the tibia. Then we had the collarbone, which was the clavicle. The small lower leg bone at the back was the fibula. So tibia and fibula in the lower leg, tib at the front. Where we at, number 11? Toes and fingers are phalanges. Yeah. Long bone at the top of the leg, the thigh bone, was the femur. Breastbone, that one there, the breastplate, was the sternum. And then the bone in the forearm above the little finger was the ulna. Yeah. So that was the ulna, the last one. So yeah, how did we get on, guys? Like I say, if you want to drop me a message, let me know how you get on. If you want to put it in the chat, by all means do. If you know, if you want to keep it to yourself, but again, that's fine. You know, if you're thinking to yourself, okay, this might just let you sort of think, okay, I'm remembering that, no bother. I'm finding it hard to remember certain words or certain names, or you know where they are, you know. So like I say, just doing a little thing like this from time to time, good exercise to just see where we're at, and see if there's any areas that might be worth sort of revisiting. Maybe it's not straight away, give it a week or two. But the beauty of it is, guys, with these sessions being online, you can come back and revisit them whenever you want. And even if that's just sort of scrolling through and looking for a particular slide, you wouldn't have to necessarily watch the whole video again. But it should be nice and easy to come back and find particular sort of topics to revise. Whereas if we were face to face, like we will be again eventually when the time is right, I'm sure, if we were face to face, we wouldn't have that luxury quite so much at the minute. So let's make the most of it. Okay then, guys, cool. So as promised, let's have a spin on and explore the muscles a little bit more, because of course we know that our skeleton, when it comes to movement, certain bones are structured in a certain way to allow us to move. But like I say, without our muscles, we aren't going to be moving anywhere in a hurry. So let's see what muscles we're familiar with then. So we've got a little word search to do. I am well aware that they're difficult to do on a computer without drawing on the screen, without getting a permanent marker and drawing on the screen. But just see if there's any words in there that jump out to you as muscles that you've heard of before. Any words that you've come across in there before. It was totally sort of randomly populated. So if you see any other funny words in there, by all means let us know. I always appreciate a word that's found its way into a word search that shouldn't be there. So yeah, like I say, we're looking at different muscles in the body now as well. So to the best of my knowledge, none of them run diagonally or backwards. So you should just be able to either up or down, reading in the right direction. The answers should be on there as well. So any words that you see that you think are a muscle, might be a muscle, maybe it's a word that you've come across before and you weren't sure. Let's see how many we can find. And again, we'll have a couple of minutes, and then we'll have a look at the answers slide and see what's there. A little bit of a talk about them, and don't need to go into quite as much detail with the different muscles, especially not this week, but we can start to get an idea of where they are in the body, how they move, which is, again, same as the skeleton. The more we understand the skeleton, the more we can focus on good, healthy movements and staying active in the right ways. And the same with our muscles. If we know how our muscles should move, we know what's going to put them more at risk of injury, getting hurt, getting strained. And like I say, that's just that level of understanding is our foundation really for moving forward and understanding our own body a little bit better. Oh, nice. Tammy's on a flyer. We've got glute, we've got hamstring, we've got bicep, we've got quad. I think you've got more than I found just by just having a quick glance over it as well. Let's have a look. So I can see two that are running down over. I can't actually see any more running down over, actually. Oh no, three. You found hamstring. Where did you find hamstring at? Okay, yeah, got it. Got hamstring. Nice one. Good spot. Okay, then cool. So we'll give it what? We'll give it another minute or two. Another minute or two. Yeah, no, well done. You can see some of them just end up looking like random accidental nonsense words, and you're like, oh, that's actually a thing, is it? It's like I say, some of these names will be really helpful to like I say, help you understand your own body, especially in sort of like from a fitness point of view. If you're planning on, like, you know, getting a bit more active, starting a new fitness journey or whatever it might be, like I say, understanding individual muscles will be really helpful in like I say, just deciding on how you're going to go about that exercise and that training. Oh, nice find. We've got tricep as well. Nice. We've got 25 past, and we'll start having a look through, break these down a little bit more. But yeah, like I was saying, some of these muscles, some of the names, there might be a more common name that you would hear more often again in the gym, you know. Give you a freebie to see if you can find it in there somewhere. So your chest muscles are your pectorals. So you've got pecs. So again, knowing where your pecs are, if you go to a machine and it says this machine will work your pecs, it's helpful to know where those are, obviously. So like I say, just understanding where they are in the body and how they move can help our exercise be a lot more straightforward. Okay then, guys. Okay, let's start breaking some of these down. So we'll look at where the answers are, and then we'll look at the muscles separately and what they do. Okay, so let's do the crossways ones first. So the horizontal ones. Crossways. You can tell it's Monday. Okay, so the first one that we've got is the Gluteus Maximus. Tammy, you are absolutely spot on. The shorter name that you'll probably come across would be the glute. The Gluteus Maximus is the single biggest muscle in the body, and is essentially your bum muscle. But we do have certain smaller muscles as well that also count as glutes as well. But the main one is the Gluteus Maximus, and that is essentially your bum. If you hear someone talking about training their glutes, it will include and probably be the Gluteus Maximus. Okay. Right, next one across is bicep. Not saying bicep. That's not a word. Saying bicep, the paintprint states of gains. No, we've got the bicep, which is it's on the sort of like, as you could say, the front of your arm, depending on how you've got it angled, the inside of your arm. This one here, pretty much, that when it shortens, it pulls in my upper arm, the same as when the tricep shortens on the back of my arm sort of straightens again. Yeah, so the bicep and the tricep, hugely important for controlling that elbow joint. Yeah, and they work opposite each other. When one gets shorter, the other one has to get longer. Yeah, so we've got the bicep on the arm, on the front of the arm, and we'll get the tricep when we get there. One thing to note with the bicep, and a couple of other different muscles, the bicep is referred to as one muscle, but is actually sort of a combination of different separate muscles or different muscle heads, which control different parts of the movement. To keep it simple, the bicep has two. Yeah, so you've got the long head and the short head. Yeah, that's the bicep, and it gets the name bicep from the fact that there's two of them. Yeah, bicep, two, like a bicycle. Then with the tricep, you've probably guessed already. Yeah, the triceps got three heads, which is where that name comes from. And you'll never guess how many the quadriceps got. Yeah, it's got four. So that is where the name of some of these muscles actually come from. The bicep is, like I say, two heads. The tricep is three, and the quadricep is actually four individual muscles. Not to confuse you, but I actually find that makes it a little bit easier to remember sometimes, and just knowing where the names actually come from as well. Okay, and next one across, we've got the deltoid. We've got the deltoid, or the deltoids, really, it should say, because we've got again, so your deltoids are your shoulder muscles, yeah, but it's a lot more than just this muscle on the front that you lift your arms with. So we've got your front delts, yeah, your anterior delts. Then you've got your side delts, yeah, which do so. Say your front delts or your front deltoids do a lot of raising in front of your body or pushing above your head. That would work that shoulder muscle there. Yeah. If you were, however, standing with your hands by your side and just bringing them up to shoulder height, all of that movement, or a lot of that movement, actually comes from the side deltoid. Yeah. And then again, if you go to pull something in towards your head, that is actually getting pulled by the rear deltoid, which sits right on the back of your shoulder. So the deltoids are three separate parts, obviously on either side, but the deltoid is always referring to the shoulder muscle. If someone's being more specific, they will probably say front delts, rear delts, whatever it might be. But the deltoid will always be the shoulders. Then we had the hamstring, as Tammy spotted and found for us. We've got the hamstring, which is it's the muscle that runs kind of up the back of your leg from your knee to your bum, really, your hamstring, and is kind of, again, our legs and our arms are very similar. So with our upper body, we've got bicep pulls that way, tricep pulls that way, and we've got the same in the lower body as well. If you think about the knee joint as the elbow but of the leg, we've got the quadricep, which will help, or your thigh muscle, which will help straighten your leg. If you've got your feet sat down on the floor in front of you now, if you were to sort of straighten your leg, that's your quadricep, your thigh muscle working to lift that there. And very much like the bicep and the tricep, the hamstring does the other side of that movement. So if I want to bring my heel towards my bum, either to tuck my feet up underneath me or whatever it might be, if you were standing up and wanted to put your heel towards your bum, that would be from a hamstring exercise, yeah, or a hamstring movement. Hamstring will close the knee. Quadricep sitting on your thigh will open the knee up. Okay, the hamstrings are a funny one as well, because there's a lot of injury on the hamstrings. I actually used to work with a client who couldn't squat. She used to get down so low, not low enough, which was the problem. She used to get down so low, and then her feet would try and pull up from the floor, because she didn't have the mobility in her ankles, because she used to work as a hairdresser and worked in high heels all day. And you'll be thinking, well, what on earth's that got to do with anything? But because she was in high heels all day, her feet, her heels were elevated, and therefore her hamstring was shorter because it wasn't stretching so her heel could touch the floor. So when she needed that muscle to be longer or more flexible, it wasn't able to do it. So the hamstrings take a lot of, again, a lot of sports, footballers and stuff like that get a lot of hamstring injuries. Because the quadricep, the thigh muscles get worked so much, but the hamstrings don't, and we end up with like an imbalance. Okay then, guys, last two of the crossways ones. Anyway, we've got the trapezius. So the trapezius is this one here in our neck, kind of really sort of like between our shoulders and our neck. You tend to see obviously the guys that, or the people that lift weights. Bodybuilders tend to have absolutely massive ones. They tend to be a surefire sign of steroid use if they're absolutely massive and absolutely bloated and sort of look inhuman. But those are the traps. And these muscles here, guys, are the ones that we actually carry a lot of emotional baggage in, and of course our posture, the way that we sit all day, affects these muscles as well. So yeah, trapezius is quite a big muscle actually, and we'll get a look in just a minute at quite how big it is. Okay, then we had quadricep. Like I mentioned, quadricep is the thigh muscle. It's 4 separate muscles, normally lumped together because the same exercise will work all 4. Generally speaking, and yeah, quadricep, it's 4 heads, and it's the front of your thigh muscle really. Okay, so we've got a few to do running down over. There's not quite so many, so we'll burn through these guys. So we've got the gastrocnemius is a strange old name for the calf, and in fact, I'm going to Google and say where this comes from. Where does gastrocnemius come from? Let's have a look. I have to keep looking. It's Latin. It's Latin, I think. Okay, so yeah, that is the calf muscle, guys. The gastrocnemius is just your calf muscle. And again, if you were to go to the gym and say, "Oh, I want to tone me calves up or try and put mass on me calves," or whatever it might be, you know, you're probably going to call them calves. You're not going to call them your gastrocnemius. But that is the scientific name, and if you ever come across it, it's handy to know where they are. Latissimus dorsi, again, it's about as Latin as it gets, isn't it? Latissimus dorsi are these muscles here that run down your side, sort of from your armpit down to almost down to your waist, really, but they sort of connect on your lower back. And yeah, you'll probably hear them more often and more frequently called the lats, or somebody's lats rather than latissimus dorsi. Again, I don't think I ever called them latissimus dorsi when I was working with a client. They were always lats, but of course it's handy to know what that refers to and what those muscles actually do. So again, if you were sort of like pulling yourself up on a bar, doing a chin up, a lot of that movement's actually going to come from these muscles on your side there. Okay, that was lats. Tricep we've mentioned quite a lot. Like I say, 3 heads, works opposite the bicep. Like I say, if I was to come into that position and then straighten at the elbow, that's this muscle getting shorter. Yeah, so it's like a pulley system. All your muscles really are a pulley system. Yeah, it's just like I said, the blinds. Yeah, you pull and it lifts. Pectorals we mentioned are your chest muscles. Yeah, of course, men and women both have pectorals, regardless of anything else. And then the last one that we've got is our abdominals, which again might be one that you've come across before, a term that you're more familiar with. Our abs, really, I guess you could call them, yeah. And those are our people think of them as our core muscles, but they're not really. They're like the outer layer of our core. They're essentially your 6-pack. They are your 6-pack. Everybody has a 6-pack. It's just a case of how clear they are, how well defined are they. But we do all have these muscles that are responsible for sort of contracting the body. If you, again, like it's why we exercise them through like sit-ups and stuff like that. If you do a sit-up, you're contracting your abs, but you're not necessarily training all those other core muscles as well. So core training and a good core and a strong core is about more than just abs. You can have a really solid core and not be able to see your abs at all. You really can. So with abs, it's a lot more about the function than the aesthetics and the way that they look. That's for sure. Okay then, guys. So let's spin on and just have a look at these muscles and where they are before we finish up for the day. So let's have a look. Then we can maybe come back and do the quiz at the end. So we've got, like I say, on the front of the body, we've got the deltoid is the shoulders. Now remembering that there is a side delt and a rear delt as well in the shoulder. So shoulder includes front and back and side. Bicep, this one here on the inside of your arm. Pectorals are your chest muscles. Yeah, and we can even see, and again, this is where it starts to come in. If we can see how these muscles move or how they're supposed to move, we can get an idea of what's going to hurt us and what's not. So muscles like to stretch in the way that the fibers run. So we can see that, like, this is almost sort of like there's different strands, what we call striations. It's like ribbed, and we can see the way that the muscle fiber runs. So the pec muscles need to be stretched acrossways, which is why when we do a chest press, they stretch acrossways. If we do a press up, they stretch acrossways. If I move those a different way, that muscle's not going to get as much stimulation. So again, gives us an idea how to challenge those muscles. Abdominals, like I mentioned, are the 6-pack really, or the 8-pack, and they sit on the outer of your core. They're the outside wall. Yeah, so they're not your entire core. And like I say, just having strong abs won't necessarily give you a strong core. Having strong abs but a weak lower back can actually give you more pain than it prevents, because you've got really strong at the front, not at the back, and you get tension. You get tension pulling on bones and stuff. Quadriceps then. Quadriceps, like I mentioned, are the thigh muscle, and as I said, there are four individual muscles that all sort of work together to control that range of movement. But the quads are down the front of your thigh. Then, like I'd said, on the back, go back, we can see as I mentioned earlier, the hamstring on the back of the leg working opposite the quadriceps, just like the bicep and tricep in the arm. We've got our gastrocnemius, which is our calf, yeah, or the upper meatier part of our calf. The gluteus maximus, like I said, the biggest single muscle in the body. I just think of Gluteus Maximus, if that helps you remember it. Then we've got, like I say, our triceps we've mentioned in the back of the arm. The Latissimus Dorsi, which are our lats. And again, like I said, they sit very much on the side. And then we've got our trapezius, which starts at the base of the skull, out to the shoulder, and then they almost sort of taper back in and attach sort of halfway down the spine. So again, although we see this muscle more up here at the back of the neck, it actually runs right the way down to the base of our spine as well. And that muscle needs to be nice and strong throughout, and not just at the top or just at the bottom, because again, you end up with a lot of pain. A lot of back pain tends to come from, believe it or not, either the hamstrings, and it's causing pain that refers itself upwards. You know, like tight hamstrings will put strain on your pelvis, which puts strain on your back, or the other way, where, like I say, it might be more just to do with this muscle not being tight enough at the top. Maybe, you know, you've got quite sort of rounded shoulders. Maybe, especially if you're sort of looking down at your phone all day, you think of like that muscle getting stretched forward. And then all of a sudden that becomes your normal posture. Like, it's no wonder that when we go to put our posture into a more healthy one, it then feels uncomfortable, because our muscles get used to being in the shape that we're normally in. If that's that, then, you know, we end up again getting pain, and getting on, potentially causing problems elsewhere in the body as well. But hopefully that just gives you a bit more of a sort of visual reference as to where these muscles actually are on the body. And like I say, how they work, and again, makes you more familiar with some of the terms. So if you do try and pick up some new exercises, you know, you might want to be able to go online and say, okay, I want to look for exercises that I can do without kit, because I'm exercising at home maybe. So body weight exercises for hamstrings. Yeah, you might want to do that. If you don't know what the hamstring's called, you're going to have a bit of a harder time finding those exercises. So it does help to be aware like the proper names for each of these muscles. Even though I imagine that you're not going to turn up down the gym or your next fitness class and say, oh, I hope we do some gastrocnemius exercises tonight. I can't say it happening. Okay then, guys. So before we do come back to do that quiz, just before we finish up, just to talk briefly about the different types of muscle that we've got in the body. So what we've looked at here is entirely skeletal muscles, yeah? And they're called skeletal muscles because they are muscles that are connected to the skeleton, to our bones, yeah? They're responsible for a lot of movement that we do. So what we've got here is skeletal bones, skeletal muscle, sorry, is attached to the skeleton by tendons, yeah? Now that skeletal muscle is what we call voluntary muscle because we choose to move it. If I want to contract my delts to raise my hand above my head, I choose to do it. That's a voluntary option, yeah? As opposed to cardiac muscle, which, you know, cardio, all to do with the heart. So cardiac muscle is only found in the heart, and that is what we call involuntary muscle because you don't need to tell your heart to beat for it to beat. It's automatic. Yes, we can control it a little bit. You know, if we do some exercise, our heart rate will come up. If we have a little bit of a rest, our heart rate should come down, but we don't need to tell our heart to beat every single time like we do need to tell, say, our bicep to contract to bring our arm to there, or other muscles to move to do certain things. So we've got voluntary and involuntary, and the only voluntary muscle in the body is skeletal muscle. Now, granted, that is a lot of our muscle, but we also need to think about the involuntary muscles as well and make sure that we take care of those. We have more muscle than just the ones that we can work on the machines and that look good in the old selfie. So yeah, we need to look after the other muscles as well. So we've got the heart. Like I say, it's totally involuntary muscle, and it's cardiac muscle only found in the heart. And then the last type of muscle that we've got is actually smooth muscle. So it's found in your internal organs and your blood vessels. So again, you know, your veins, your arteries, your pancreas, your spleen, your lungs, it's all made up of something. It's all made up of muscle that will work and contract. But again, involuntary. We don't tell our stomach to digest food. We don't tell our intestine to pass food through and start to extract nutrients and stuff from it. You know, it's all voluntary, you know. I would never get any, I can't multitask. I wouldn't get anything done if I needed to tell my stomach to digest and my heart to beat and all of that. I wouldn't get anything else done. I'd be at like max capacity, max usage. So yeah, just handy to know we've got these different types of muscle, and it's not just the skeletal muscle that we see and control that we need to be thinking about as well. So we can have a little bit more of a deep dive into those other types of muscle in future sessions. Of course, today has just been the first one, and we've laid a really good foundation for moving forward. I just want to do a little bit of we'll run through this little quiz to finish up. We'll have 5 minutes or so. So we're looking for the proper muscular names of the following. So your chest muscles, your shoulder muscles, the muscle on the front of your arm, the front of your thigh, your stomach muscles. Again, we'll say the outside of your stomach muscles, the back of your neck, that diamond shape that comes out and connects on your lower back, the back of your arm and the back of your thigh, your bottom or your bum, the correct name for the calf muscle, the muscle down the side of your back. And then the last one, the side stomach muscles weren't actually labeled on the diagram, but I'll go through and show you. I don't think they were anyway. But these here, the side stomach muscles, are what we call obliques. They are our obliques, and they run down the side of your core. So you've got your abs at the front, and you've got your obliques. And remember, they need strengthening as well. It's no good having a strong front of your core and back of your core if the sides are really weak as well. We need that good balance. So let's see how we get on then, guys. Where were we? There we go. So we'll have a couple of minutes, and then I'll run through them and we'll get ourselves finished up for the day. We do need some quiz music or something. I'm not going to sing for you. Nobody would thank me for that one. Definitely not. And yeah, like I say, this sort of thing, it's quite handy to like next time you do go to a gym or You know, I'm always talking about how handy inductions can be in a gym as a good chance to sort of feel the place out, see what it's going to be like for you. Does it suit you? And again, like, you might get shown around a gym and you're thinking to yourself, right, I want to, you know, I want to tone up my legs and my bum or whatever it might be. Like, see if you, and then you're seeing machines that says like, oh, tricep press, bicep curl. If you don't know what those are, you don't know really what you're looking at. You might sign a £40 a month membership for a year and then find out like, oh, hang on, they don't actually have any machines that do the one muscle that I wanted to work. Whereas if you know them, you can be looking around and saying like, okay, that one says it's for your glutes, that one says it's for your glutes, that one's for your hamstring and quads. Those are leg muscles. And like I say, you can just make sure that somewhere's got what you are looking for, really everything that you need, and something that fits your, not just your training style, but your fitness goals as well. Like I say, it'd be the same as kind of in a more extreme example. If I wanted to get fitter and get good at running and stuff like that, and I went and joined one of them old school gyms that's just got like weights and bars and racks and like there's no cardio there, you know, I'd be thinking, well, this is a waste of your time. It's not the right gym for me. So again, it's handy to just sort of know, particularly if you can think, okay, I want to work on these couple of target areas, and then you can go forward from there. Muscles for your glutes, exercises for your glutes, exercises for your hamstrings, whatever it might be. It all comes from this understanding. Okay, right, guys. So I'll start just working through the answers for these. Again, if you do want a little bit more time, just pause it and then just check your answers afterwards. Okay, so firing away. Question 1, our chest muscles are our pecs or our pectorals. Question 2, shoulder. Our shoulder muscles are our delts or our deltoids. The front of our arm, as is being flexed and demonstrated here on these pictures, is the bicep. The front of the arm is the bicep. And the front of the thigh is the quadricep. Doing very similar jobs, but in the arm there's 2, and in the leg there's 4. The front of the thigh was the quadricep, yeah. The stomach muscle, or the outer stomach muscles, are the abdominals, or the abs. The back of the neck, in the diamond shape from the base of the skull out the shoulders and then tapers back in, was the trapezius. The back of your arm is, of course, the tricep, and the back of your thigh is your hamstring. Your bottom is your gluteus maximus. The calf muscle is your gastrocnemius. The muscle down the side of your back is your Latissimus Dorsi down here, and your side stomach muscles, as we went back and looked at, are your obliques. Yeah, so obliques down the side and down the side of your core. Okay, guys, cool. So again, how did we get on? And same again, we can use it. Okay, I remember these ones really well. I'm having trouble remembering that name, and it could give us an idea of what, if anything, we need to or would like to come back and sort of revisit in a week or two's time. Because like I say, you can always go back and check these sessions out. If this is your first course with Media Savvy, of course, these links will still work. And then when the course is finished, we'll be able to get them all into one playlist as well. So you can always just save a playlist link and come back and access these videos whenever you want, even if it is just to sort of top up your own knowledge a little bit. You know, especially as the old New Year's resolutions are right around the corner now. You know, a lot of us might be thinking about getting a bit more active in the new year. Hopefully, fingers crossed, our first year with no restrictions in a couple of years as well. So yeah, next year might be the year to be thinking about, right, I'm going to start getting a little bit more active and get on top of things again. I've been inactive for too long, because I tell you what, like I say, it's through lockdown. I've been a lot more sedentary, a lot more time spent on the laptop than exercising and being active. And you know, it's it of course has negative effects. It's nice to be able to get back to certain things. And like I say, maybe you just sort of sort of laying the foundation now, planting the seeds for hitting the ground running in the new year. Like I say, it's always handy to have stuff to come back and sort of refresh. And like I mentioned at the start of the session, my email is in the description below the video. If anybody needs to reach out to me for any reason. Like I say, to be honest, guys, a lot of these names, they'll be for your own benefit as more than anybody else's, really. And in a gym environment, you'll probably come across some of them, and it's handy to know them. Some of the more complicated ones, you're much more likely to be to hear them referred to as something else. I've never heard anybody come in the gym and say that it's Gastrocnemius day, it's I'm doing my calves today, or whatever it might be, you know. So again, if you do get stuck in the future and you think like it's just a little bit quicker than going through a session, just drop Rob a message. By all means, just drop us a message. Like I say, it doesn't matter whether you've caught the session live or not. Just drop me a message whenever, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can, really. And that'll do us for today, guys. That was everything that we needed to run through. If you've got any questions or anything, by all means, do just pop them in the chat. But yeah, that was everything that we needed to go through today. It's a good first session that we've got under our belt. It's gone. It's been absolutely spot on. So as I mentioned at the start of the session, guys, please don't forget to complete the survey that is in the link below the video, or the description below the video. Sorry. Like I say, not even 30 seconds. You can just fill it in, and the answers come back to us. No saving it, filling it in, emailing it back, any of that. Don't need to worry about none of that. That's a pain in the backside. Because as always, guys, you know, your feedback's really important to us. We like to know what we're doing well and where we can improve even more. And, you know, hopefully, touch wood, be doing some face-to-face learning again soon as well. So we will, of course, be back with week 2. We've got 5 sessions to do overall, so we've got 4 left. We've got same again next Monday, same time, 10 till 12. I know we got started a little bit late this morning, but hopefully not next week. One thing that I do need to mention, actually, in the description box where the survey is, where my email is, and all of that, you will also find a vid link or a video link, and what that does, that'll take you to another YouTube video or playlist. And what I've done, I've actually recorded and uploaded some home workouts that you could do in the house without any kit. There was one video that did use a little bit of kit from stuff around the house. You know, there's an abs workout, there's upper and lower body, there's circuit training, whatever it might be. I tried to make sure there was a little bit of something for everybody there as well. So each week at the end of the session, or, you know, maybe a little bit later once you've had your dinner, or maybe later on in the week when you've got a bit more time and space available, try completing that workout and see how you get on, because I always make sure that there's alternatives if you're struggling with a certain exercise or you're getting a little bit of pain. And you know what, like I say, there's something on there for everybody. It's not all tuck jumps and burpees or whatever it might be. You know, the video today that I've linked in today is just a nice little, it's about 20 minutes long, and it's just a stretching video. So if this is your sort of first steps on a new fitness journey, getting a bit more active, maybe you haven't been overly active through lockdown, you know, there's been other priorities, of course. It's a good place to start. It's a good place to just sort of dip your toe in the water, get moving, and like I say, just ease in and just, like I say, loosen those muscles up a little bit. If you have been quite active and you would like something a bit more challenging than a stretch, still follow that link and it'll take you straight to our YouTube playlist, but you can just look through the videos and find something that's a little bit more your pace, whatever it might be. You know, maybe it's like I say, you want to do abs or some AMRAP training or something like that. If you've done AMRAP, as many reps as possible, so you'll have like a timer, an exercise or a sequence of exercises, and you'll just repeat that for however long the timer is and do it as many times as you can. So yeah, different sessions, by all means check them out, see which ones are your pace, see which ones aren't. Like I say, there's something on there for everybody, guys, as well. So it's probably the last thing to mention from that description box. But yeah, please do make sure that that survey gets done. And as much as anything, it helps us fill in some paperwork on this end for you, so we're not gonna ring you and pester you and stuff like that. So yeah, filling in the survey helps everybody, really. And then, of course, in that same box, you'll find links to our socials. So Facebook, Insta, Twitter, and I think LinkedIn is in there as well. So yeah, lots of information in that little description box. By all means, have a look through. If you know, I've thrown it at you a little bit thick and fast this morning, but yeah, I hope you've had a good session. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's been interesting. You know, it's not about remembering everything. It's not about remembering everything first time through. It's about exploring our own bodies a little bit and our own fitness, and starting to understand how we can manage our own fitness that little bit more, and our lifestyle as well, I guess. So guys, next week, talking about that healthy lifestyle, we will be looking at healthy eating, a bit of nutrition, and how to break down the information on food labels, because they can be a nightmare sometimes trying to figure out what's healthy and what's not healthy. So yeah, we'll get into all of that next week. Same time next Monday, we'll be back. If you have any questions in the meantime, as always, drop me an email, get in touch with me or with one of the guys in the office, and we'll be happy to help you out and sort of point you in the right direction. And let's say if you want any information about upcoming courses, be it health or wellbeing or digital, then again, let me know and I'll help any way that I can. So yeah, unless I hear from you beforehand, guys, I will catch everybody next Monday, same time. Check out that fitness video. Please don't forget to do the survey and give me a shout if you need anything in the meantime. If not, stay safe, look after yourself and those around you, and we will be back next Monday to do it all again. Okay, guys, have a good day, have a good week, stay safe. I'll catch you later. Bye.